talking about the magician today. The magician. Remember that day over a week ago when I said we're gonna talk about the magician tomorrow? It's never gonna be tomorrow. So whenever I say tomorrow, it's not gonna be tomorrow. It usually means at some point after I'm done doing everything else I'm done doing throughout the weekend, if I feel like it. The next videos will come out, but I say tomorrow because I'm not sure why I always say tomorrow, but it's never really gonna be tomorrow. So usually I'm gonna try to put these out like on a weekly basis. Okay, so for those who haven't seen the first video, this is a series on the Arcana cards, so there's the 22 major Arcanas in the tarot, which are the whole, you know, they represent the whole metaphor of the fool's journey of knowledge through life. And I think we were talking earlier today, and I was saying, because it occurred to me that the whole notion of the journey isn't super clear to everyone. The whole notion of the journey starts with, so the whole point is that you're not stagnant. You're not waiting for things to happen. You've already decided to embark on some sort of journey of knowledge or conquest or discovery, or, you know, self-discovery or self-formation or something like that. So it already involves an intent. So I was talking about the fool, and the example that I used last time was when I decided to move to Scotland. So that was, and how horrible that turned out to be, and how I needed a lot of like ignorance to actually embark, because had I known everything that was going to happen, I would have never done it. So the whole implication of the fool's journey is that you've decided to do something new, or to develop yourself, or to build a skill, or to achieve something, or just to like put yourself out there, and or just interact with the world and stuff like that. So within that journey, so within that sort of narrative, comes the first Arcana card that has a number, and the Magician. It looks like in traditional tarot, more or less. Well, this is from Matt Hughes's Ethereal Visions, an Illuminated tarot deck. It's my first ever deck, and the one that I'm currently using to learn how to draw. And I think that's kind of like, it's funny that I'm talking about that now that I'm doing the Magician, because that's exactly kind of what the Magician stands for in its broadest, most general sense. It's the acknowledgement of the individual that he has at his or her disposal the tools required to basically start doing anything. And that it's great, like, it sounds like if I put it that way, it sounds like a card of great cockiness, but in a way it has a lot of inbuilt self-confidence. So there's that. So it's kind of funny that I'm telling you that I started learning how to draw on this deck, because I used to draw as a kid, right? But I never really kind of developed the skill. It was just something I did for fun. And then as I started doing something else in life, like, you know, I started doing Japanese, and then did the masters in Japanese, the whole drawing thing always kind of took a side. Like, it was something that I kind of knew that maybe I could perhaps do if I ever tried, or I wouldn't suck at, but it was never something that I really, like, I had always acknowledged as being part of my skill set. So when I did start drawing, I started with, and the Magician was one of the cards that I remember trying and failed at. I started drawing representations of Matthew's Ethereal Visions on Christmas cards that I then sent to some of my friends around the world, to kind of, because I didn't really know what to write in a Christmas card, because you always have those really generic, boring, I hope that the holy holidays bring you peace and love and abundance on your tables and blah. And I was like, nah, I don't know. I can't formulate wishes like that without, you know, fearing that I could fall into like cliche and they wouldn't feel genuine. So I drew them, and that's in essence, my friends, is the Magician. This concludes our episode. No, the whole point was that when I started drawing, I realized, like, if I have that sort of basic intent of just copying, something would come out, and it turned out that they came out quite good. And that, like, I do think there's definitely the Magician within that intent. So okay, let me just start with the basics, the stuff that I wrote in my handy dandy notebook. what the magician stands for. So it's number 1. It's like the first archetype that the fool allegedly encounters on his journey, and it's the archetype that teaches the fool that everything he requires is already at his disposal. So symbolically, how you'll see the magician depicted, let me see if I can find one where you can actually see the elements. In this one you can kind of make it out. So the fool is usually like this guy who has this table in front of him, and on the table he has the symbols of all the 4 suits of the deck. So the cups, the wands, the swords, and the pentacles. And those, symbolically, they stand for the spiritual, the physical, the mental, and the emotional resources that one needs to sort of start a new project. And and that, in turn, kind of corresponds to skill, confidence, action, and drive. No, skill, creativity, skill, focus, and desire, or drive. Or so... the pentacles usually, as elements of the tarot, they stand for like what you actually have, like the palpable things, like from skill to actual physical resources and things like that that you have, or that you may need to carry something out. So like another example I want to use to talk about the magician is how we started this this YouTube channel. I keep making jokes that I just, like, one day I was like, I'm just gonna make a YouTube channel. I'm gonna call it like the little universe in the kitchen corner, because like I actually have that in the kitchen right corner. It's right there. And usually Betsy and Fred are usually over there. And then I just kind of commissioned the artwork from Rilu, and then she made it, and then I was like, okay, cool, so we're doing this. And then I started making videos, and though we didn't even have a tripod, we have a tripod now. We kind of have a tripod. I'm still learning how to use it. Okay. Initially we had 3 boxes of my clothes, which we had in the cupboard, because I abruptly moved to my boss's house throughout the summer, apropos also of nothing. And those were our tripod for a while, and part of our tripod was the knife stand. We took out all the knives. Every time we would film, we'd take out all the knives and put it on its side, and if someone would come in the kitchen, they'd just see like all the knives laid out on the counter. It was really weird, but the point was, like, I had a camera that someone gave to me a while ago that we don't longer use, and I use my phone with an Amazon bought iPad, and I knew I'm not an expert in tarot or anything like that, but I felt like I had, like, at the time it wasn't even about tarot. It was about how tarot, well, it was about a lot of things, but mostly what happened to me since January and how I got rid of my depression and insomnia. So I had the focus, because it was fresh in my memory. So I had the ideas running, and I had like a very basic set of requirements, like a camera and a bunch of boxes. And I remember we drew a line with washi tape on the floor, so we know where to place the plastic boxes to know how far we'd need to be from the camera. So that my head wouldn't be like cut from, which we failed, of course, because my head usually didn't appear from here. Anyway. And in terms of like creativity, all my experience was very fresh in my mind, and Rebecca's funny, so she makes me funnier. And so that would come across on camera. At least all she had to do is just kind of sit there, because I knew what we were already talking about, and I knew it was interesting to us, so hopefully it was going to be interesting to someone. And there was that desire, and then of course the pandemic also helped, because it's not like we had other stuff to do. So we did this, and that's kind of part of the magician energy. But the whole thing is the magician teaches the fool, or teaches every one of us, that if we try, if we want to, if it really kind of comes upon us, we will find what we need to make something happen of whatever quality, but then you build on it. There's the rest of this, just the first, we've just covered 2 Arcana cards. There's 20 more. So there's still stuff happening. It doesn't have to be perfect from the onset, but it has to be something. The willing, you need to have the willingness to produce something, and then you'll find the skills, and the ideas are there, because that's what that's what's animating you. And just woof, YouTube channel. Anyway, now I'll show you more magicians. See, I like this one. This is from the Linestrider deck. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. This one's kind of cute, because it's a monkey. But I want to show you this one, because here the infinity sign above the magician's head is very obvious, and also the position of the hands are obvious. And the reason why I'm mentioning these is because what the magician is considered is that who stands between the realm of gods and the realm of men. And he's usually represented, so the magician represents Mercury as a planet, and Hermes as a god, the messenger of the gods, that which walks between it's that energy that knows that is part of the divine, but shows you how to reproduce that in the realm of the actual reality. And he stands for the principle of as above, so below. So if there's some kind of guiding principle that directs the microcosm and the universe and everything, that in a way you can replicate that at the scale of your own life, because the same principles apply, so to speak. And I was talking about the algorithm. I'm gonna do that every time. And I know I've not been very clear about what that is, and it's not very clear to me yet either, so when more clarity comes, I'll probably talk about it in other videos. But to me, if that applies, like the way I've used the algorithm was, when I put it down, it was, I've said this before, it was initially like a conflict resolution strategy. This is how you solve your conflicts with people. And then I started testing it out to see if it applies in other circumstances as well, until it applied to so many that I kind of now assume, though I have no proof for that it's probably like a very guiding sort of dynamic that moderates everything, like, probably. And like, even beginning with the whole notion of the religious god as being order against the forces of evil, which chaos, blah blah blah, I can apply it. I can see the algorithm manifest within that narrative as well. So the magician is a reminder of that is that sort of higher structure that applies within the realms of your own life. And if you know how to use the elements at your disposal, the 4 elements, it will work. And the magician also stands for manifestation, and I think a lot of people have heard about the whole like law of attraction. I'm not an expert. I remember seeing this movie when I was a kid. This documentary was called The Secret, and it was this super esoteric, very pretentious, hard to believe documentary about the law of, in effect it was about the law of attraction, about how if you inhabit this place of good vibes, let's just call them good vibes, then and if you visualize something good happening, then that's what the universe will give you. Like in a worldlier sense, and I do believe this is true in terms of mental health, that is, if you inhabit this mental space of very like poor states of mind, like those, when you think about your own failures and you're in a place of where you're afraid of embarrassing yourself, and you're constantly in doubt of people's appreciation of you, and that's what it's going to generate. And I think in depression it's exactly that you put yourself in that mental state, and to the extent that it kind of dominates over your entire mental realm, and you can't get out of it. But once you do, there's this kind of upward self-generating positive spiral, and you'll have your downfalls every now and again, but then you'll know once you're out of that space. At least that's the way it worked for me. Once I was out of the depressive state, when everything was just bleak and it was taking over everything, and the way I visualized all the events in my life, once I was out of that, I knew to recognize it when it would come again, and I'd know just to let it pass, just kind of let it come across, because I knew it wasn't real. I knew it was like my mind fabricating it. And then, I was trying to put myself in a place where I'd be like, oh, you know what, let's just assume I'm going to be rich and famous. Let's just pretend I'm already rich and famous, and I'm going to be rich and famous because of a YouTube channel. And then, first I have to make that YouTube channel so that I can be rich and famous. So I made it. I'm not rich and famous yet, but who cares? Because, like, I'm doing this, and this is fun. And I'm interacting with a lot of people who are responding to it. And that's already great, That's already me out of like social isolation. That's already me in a very positive frame of mind. That's already me assuming that I can build a better circumstances for myself. And as I'm assuming that, they are happening because I'm making these every week, right? Anyway, let me show you a few more. This one's cute. Here's the rabbit. Actually, it's interesting to see what animals the magician embodies, because you have the monkey over here, and here's the whole notion of the primate. That's a very intelligent sort of animal that will actually use objects as tools to get, like to cause an outcome. So you have the primates use sticks to actually fish for ants, and then they eat ants. And, there's that ingenuity. But here you have the rabbit, which is, the correlative is that it's lucky, that the magician knows of itself that he is lucky and he generates his own luck. And here you have the raven. And there's always one hand to the sky, usually with the wand, and one towards the land, and that's the whole liaison between the heavens and the earth, right? And it's also usually in the monkey one, you have the hand that's kind of aiming towards the earth is in a sign of benediction, and is that sort of reassurance that the gods, like, they do look over us in the sense that they want our best, but it's also kind of a reassurance that if we are part of a greater sort of, greater conscious entity, it is us. We are it. So obviously we all want the best for ourselves, and so does it. But again, I'm not making any comments on what the existential or metaphysical implications of this are. I'm just talking about the symbolism for now. I have another one. I like this one. Here the magician is a woman, but the magician it's pretty, like, it's androgynous. It doesn't really matter if it's very much like the fool. It could be anyone empowered. Anyone empowered and able to empower others, at least by bringing their own power into their awareness. And here she's holding like the crystals, which I must assume is are representations of the Philosopher's Stone, which is, it's in Jungian terms, it's kind of like the ego that's already been completed and formed the self, the higher self, right? You have the Ukiyoe representation. So it's like this guy has all those elements over there. So the infinity symbols is and other depictions I see that they had, in addition to the infinity symbol, sometimes he wears a Uroboros belt, the dinosaur, like the snake that eats itself, which is also a symbol of completion and of a higher self emerging from a smaller ego. This one's nice. This one's the shaman. You have, of course, embodied within this a lot of other symbolism. So for instance, the ancestral memory of wild animals, or walker between worlds, or the Merlin as a teacher and adept, and also the wild man of the woods. So someone who's kind of like a spiritual guide, basically, but it doesn't reveal the greater secrets of the universe, of life, and everything. It mostly reveals the power within yourself, and then having that, you move forward. Because in essence, that is the thing that moves you forward from the beginning of your journey. This one's cute too. This is one of my newer decks. And this one's like, I'm so excited, I got this one today. Here you have a superimposition between the Queen of Clubs and the Magician, but essentially it's the same thing. And here you have him depicted as a lion, because there is that strength in the knowledge of your own abilities. And this is what the magician is. It's creativity, it's skill, it's focus, it's drive, it's confidence, it's action. And remember when we were talking about the fool, you were mentioning the trickster, and I said, the trickster is I find it usually affiliated with the fool, but you were mentioning that it might be affiliated to the magician as well. There is that nuance. I have read about it, where they call the magician the shapeshifter, as someone who has the power and can use the power maliciously, but doesn't. He uses it with wisdom, and the whole point is that the magician within yourself, you guide yourself. There's no reason why you should lead yourself astray, and furthermore, there's no reason why you should lead any other individuals astray, because that's the point of the magician, is coming to the awareness that you're not any less than other people who are successful. You make your own. First of all, you make the frame of mind within which you can become successful, and then you bring the resources, few as they are, that you have, like be they box of clothes and knife stands and stuff like that, within your grasp, and then you use all of that and you make something of it. And in the beginning, it's not like it's gonna be very polished. Like, our stuff wasn't very polished in the beginning, and it's still not very polished, and it's probably not gonna be very polished for a while, because I'm not doing this full time, but and I don't care. But you will do something that might be used to yourself or to others. This is the Kawaii tarot. I love this one. It's so minimal. And in a way, you're reminding yourself of your own abilities and your own creativity and your own skill and your own drive and your own focus. But it's also sort of like, the magician is also kind of a pointer to, it's also something greater than yourself that's reminding you that you have these abilities within yourself because they come from somewhere higher. Whether you would call that the better version of yourself, which you haven't yet become, or you call that, higher forms of, energy, be they God or whatever, spirit, or, greater consciousness, collective consciousness, or anything. The thing is, or we can call it that in a Jungian way, collective consciousness. If others do it, you can do personal versions of success based on your personal skill sets, and it's achievable. And I remember how much I wasn't within this frame of mind when I moved to Scotland. I remember how afraid I was to even apply to university to do my master's, which I've completed, and then I'm doing a PhD now at the same university. And I was almost certain that coming from Romania, from like a university that's not even in the top 500, well, now it is, but back then I don't think it was, from a university that isn't even in the top 500 in Europe, that I wouldn't get accepted, and what was I gonna do for the rest of my life, because I was working in the hotel industry where I used to be this person who always talked back and complained about everything, because I don't work well with authority. I believe I'm not meant to have bosses. Anyway, so I was displeased with everything, but I got accepted, and it was like, first of all, it was that knowledge, and I subsequently asked my supervisor, how come I got accepted? It's like, well, you met the criteria. And I was like, okay, apparently I met the criteria. And I wasn't, even though I could objectively check the criteria and see that, yeah, I do have, I have a good shot, I was very reluctant to believe that that's true. And then, I got confidence from the outside, but the magician, there's something from the outside that can bring you confidence, like, a success, a form of, admittance to university, or like someone accepting to marry you, or whatever, getting pregnant after many attempts and trying, or, whatever. But the magician is a little bit more. It's about being empowered from within. It's about having reached out to the sources that could generate your confidence. You now have enough to generate your own self-confidence, and then that propels you further, through the rest of the journey. But it's doable, and now you're putting in the work, because that first and foremost you need to do that to achieve anything else, and you find your way to do it. There's no more room of that lack mentality, like I don't have this and I don't have that, and if I was slimmer, and if I looked better on camera, and if I actually had a tripod, and it was like, and if I should read these other 1,000 books before I allow myself to speak about the topic. No, you're like, I've read these, I've done this, I've listened to like thousands of YouTube videos in the span of about 2 years. I know enough to make a 20-minute video about the magician, so I'm gonna make it, and I don't, we'll see what happens after that. So there's that. Okay. I think that sums it up. Okay. Right. Next. What's next? Let me see what will come next. I don't know them in order. After the magician comes... Ooh, the high priestess. The high priestess. Wow. Oh. I'm not even... Oh my god. I'm kind of blushing, because that one's like... That's one of the cards that I want to get to embody. I want to feel like the high priestess. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. It's a very fleeting sort of energy. So I'm not super confident about whether or not we'll get to carry the message behind it across. But we'll see when it happens, not tomorrow. Not tomorrow. Okay, so yeah, stay tuned for the high priestess for next time. Bye. If you liked the video, don't forget to share and subscribe to support us. See you on the next video.